Hello everyone, and thank you for viewing my Source 2020 presentation, Contemporary European Animation. My name is Skyler Smith. I am a fourth-year student at CWU studying Anthropology and Information Technology. My mentor for this project is Jennifer Green, who teaches in the Communications Department at CWU and is the faculty advisor for Pulse Magazine. A short history of animation. Animation is actually older than live-action film. It was created in the beginning of the 19th century when persistence of vision experiments were going on. The theory of persistence of vision is that if you see a quick succession of still images, your brain will fill in the blanks between those images and make it look as if that image or figure is continuously moving. Some of the devices that demonstrated this theory are the phenakistoscope, zoetrope, and praxinoscope, as seen on the left-hand side of this slide. These were considered a novelty and were often taken on tours for the vaudeville theaters. In the beginning of the 20th century till about the start of World War II, animation was used by European artists as an extension of traditional art mediums such as painting, especially by the Surrealist and Dadaist movements. They would take their visual concepts and ideas and make them move and put rhythm and music to them. Not all films are like this, but many films were plotless and really explored just these basic visual ideas and concepts. The oldest surviving animated feature-length film from this time period is The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, which was released in 1926 and was created by Lotte Reiniger, who was born in Germany over the course of 2 years. You can see a still image from this film here at the bottom middle of this slide. With the end of World War II, the European animation industry was really far behind. World War II had destroyed much of the infrastructure needed to create films, and Disney, with the huge success of their first feature-length animated film, Snow White in 1937, had really kind of started dominating the global animation market, making the second half of the 20th century kind of look like a Disney versus the rest of the world kind of situation. In the 1960s to 1980s, others were kind of allowed to come to the forefront as Disney had a slump in their successes, especially in Eastern Europe in the 1960s. Creators were very prolific, purportedly creating 120 films a year. Most of these were experimental and surreal or based on folk tales. You see this very commonly in the European market then, as well as today, as a way to differentiate themselves in the global market and create films that you're not going to see anywhere else. This is also when we see the breakthrough of Asian animation into the international market, especially with the premiere of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind in 1984, which is a Studio Ghibli production. In the 1990s, of course, Disney has their renaissance with the big premiere of The Little Mermaid, and you see the first feature-length computer-generated animated film from Pixar. And in general, during this decade, you see the incorporation of digital technology and computer-generated animation, which has only increased since that time. 4 things that you should know about the animation landscape in Europe today. International collaboration, both within the European Union and outside of the European Union, is the norm for both animated films and live-action films. This is to ensure that productions have the funds, talent, and facilities needed to create their vision. One really great example of this is Kirikou and the Sorceress, made in 1998. This was a collaboration between France, Hungary, and Latvia, and is often held as an example for other productions. The animation industry within Europe is very strong enough to have their own specialized studios and organizations and festivals. So that's really exciting to see that this community is really strong and so tight-knit that they can have their own section of the industry apart from live-action films. State funding makes many of these films possible, whether it's through tax breaks or specifically allocated funds for filmmakers and animated filmmakers. Especially in Poland, the United Kingdom, and France, their film markets are doing very well, especially with exporting television programs, which is huge in the animation industry in Europe. Interestingly enough, animated films compared to live-action films in Europe actually travel, do better critically, and often make more money in comparison to their live-action films, which really makes these state organizations want these films to be made, which is very exciting. Still, the global competition looms large. Disney and other U.S. production companies still rule the international animation market. However, video-on-demand services like Netflix and Amazon Prime are offering co-production opportunities and platforms for these animated films to be seen, which is very exciting. One very good example of this is the Netflix collaboration with several other European countries, The Little Prince, which was released in 2015. Some quick facts and figures. There are very few European animated feature films produced in a year, and most European animated films European animation films only see about 3% of total box office admissions within the European Union. Most animated feature films in Europe find most of their money abroad outside of the European Union. The 4 major markets for animation in Europe are the United Kingdom, Ireland, France, and Russia. The UK has the highest grossing industry abroad, while France has the highest amount of TV shows produced. Belgium has the highest distribution rate with an average of 20.4 distribution territories per film. That just means that's the amount of individual countries and places that their films are shown in. Adaptations in the European market. Flash is both a method and a program that is very cost and time effective. That is the most used method for animation by European animated productions today. If you want to see a really great example of what you can do with Flash, I highly suggest watching the movie Ernest and Celestine, which was a majority French production made in 2012. They will also use experimental and mixed techniques and new technologies to differentiate themselves. One great example of this is the film Loving Vincent, which is a biopic of Vincent van Gogh. Each frame of that film is an oil painting in the style of Vincent van Gogh, and this is the first film that is feature-length that has ever done that in the world, and it was made in Europe. Style is often adapted to budget, computer animation, and pre-filming with live actors to use as reference or to lay down under computer animation so that you don't have to spend hours rendering or figuring out how these imagined entities are going to move saves money. Use of branding, so making many products and shows and titles surrounding an animated film, as well as using pre-existing properties, help bolster success for these films. These productions will also explore topics and themes that many other markets don't. For example, many of these films have political edge or are documentaries or explore more mature themes. And this has given the misconception that European animation is adult animation. This is simply not true. Animated films from Europe cover all sorts of topics and are geared towards all sorts of audiences. The European Animation Plan. The European Union and industrial entities within the European Union believe in animated films so much that they have decided to enact the European Animation Plan, which was started in September of 2017 and is set to go for 5 years. This plan, 3 main objectives are to foster the global reach of European Union animation, to make Europe an attractive workplace for European talent and talent from abroad, and to unleash the scale and potential of European Union animation through easier access to finance. These objectives exist because it's very difficult for animated productions to find pre-funding due to the fact that animated films are very laborious to create. It can take a few years to create an animated film, whereas a live action film can take up to maybe like a few months to create. And in addition, animated films have a very long recruitment time, which means it takes them a very long time for them to earn back their budgets and to make a profit. 5 to 10 years is typical. That is the end of my presentation. If you want to explore the world of European animated film, which I highly suggest you do, there is a list of suggestions here on your screen. I've also put together a playlist on YouTube of European animation examples here in the last slide and some inside perspectives from the industry. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to send any questions you might have.